Alright, today I wanted to do a video similar to my last video, and we're going to dive into how I think Aaron Pico matchups with the Featherweight top 15. Now, after that Patricio Pitbull fight, I think Aaron Pico finally won a lot of people over, or at least brought them back over, after that bad Lerone Murphy knockout. And while I do think it was a very good performance for Pico, and either way you chop it up, it was either a 30-27 or 29-28 or even 29-27, but watching Aaron Pico is still scary, man, I'm not gonna lie. Pitbull stung him with a couple hard jabs in the first round, a couple hard leg kicks, and with about 45 seconds left, Aaron Pico tried to throw a leg kick. Pitbull caught him with a hard straight, and it definitely stung him. To me, watching Pico, he still just seems kind of fragile. I'm just always going to be afraid that if a clean 1-2 lands flush across the chin, that boy's going down. It's not a full-blown glass chin, but it's a very shaky chin for sure. He's kind of a glass cannon. I mean, he's more of a shaky cannon, you know? Not quite a glass cannon, but he's in that range. And to pivot off of that point and to go into more of the positives, I will say that after that first round, he didn't really get hit with anything too crazy. And as long as he continues to further develop his game plan and his fight IQ, he definitely could be a serious problem at featherweight. In the second round, he really started to put his combos together. He was throwing hard hooks, punches to the body, uppercuts, and with about 2 minutes left in the second round, he sat Pitbull down. He got a takedown and landed some strong ground and pound at the end of the round as well. And the third round was much of the same. He just worked in some more wrestling later in the round. It was a very dominant decision for Aaron Pico and just a great win overall. Going ahead and getting into the rankings, at number 15 with the new updated rankings, we have Patricio Pitbull here, so nothing really to go over here. I think we kind of broke that down pretty good already, so we'll go ahead and get into the next one. At number 14, we have David Onama, and I actually suggested David Onama to be Aaron Pico's next matchup after UFC 327. David Onama was 6-2 in the UFC before getting knocked out by Steve Garcia, and I won't lie, that was a pretty bad knockout, and if I had to predict how this fight would go, it would probably be similar to that fight. But the main reason I think this is a good matchup for Pico is David Onama is a featherweight that's been around for a couple years. He's 6-3 now overall after that knockout loss, and just a good fighter for him to, again, see how he ranks up in this division. Because Pitbull, again, obviously a ranked fighter, but obviously on his, downward path in his career as well. And David Onama is 31, most likely still has the ability to develop and get a little bit better, so I think this is a good, safe matchup for Pico, and honestly, if this fight did take place, I'd probably have Pico getting a round 1 knockout. At the new number 13 rank, we have Aaron Pico, and honestly, man, I think Aaron Pico knocks Aaron Pico out. That chin's a little questionable. I think he gets knocked out by Aaron Pico, so, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. At number 12, we have Melquizael Costa, and honestly, I think this would be another good matchup for Aaron Pico if he wasn't already scheduled to be fighting Arnold Allen. I think this would be a really fun fight, and I lean Aaron Pico, but Melquizael Costa is very impressive, and I think, after this Arnold Allen fight, we'll definitely see where he lines up more in this division. The biggest problem that I see for Aaron Pico in this fight would be Melquizael's kicks and his range. He's very good with the leg kicks, very good with the body kicks and the front kicks, so I could see that causing a problem for Pico, but I think he has a very good power advantage, and I think he could work in the wrestling, so I see either Aaron Pico catching Costa in the second and knocking him out, or getting a very dominant wrestling-based decision. At number 11, we have Brian Ortega, and honestly, man, I don't think Brian Ortega has much of a chance. He recently got outstruck pretty bad by Aljamain Sterling, and unless he can find a way to lock in an early submission, I just don't see this going his way. Aaron Pico's obviously pretty solid on the ground, and I trust him to not just throw himself in any stupid positions. So with that being said, my prediction for this fight would most likely be Aaron Pico just pieces up Brian Ortega on the feet and stays out of harm's way on the ground and gets a dominant decision. At number 10, we have Kevin Vallejos, and I actually recently saw another MMA YouTuber suggest Aaron Pico fight Kevin Vallejos next. Man, please do not do that. Please do not do that. If Aaron Pico fights Kevin Vallejos, I think he gets chinned very bad. Very, very bad. They are both two real prospects at featherweight right now, and there is no need to just destroy one of the other's hype by placing them against each other. I think it makes way more sense to put them against people that they can continue to build hype against and not go against someone that will most likely just destroy it. Because what if we put Aaron Pico out there with Kevin Vallejos in, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months, and then Kevin Vallejos goes out there and knocks him out in the first round? Then Aaron Pico's UFC career is a decision win over an old Patricio Pitbull and 2 bad first-round knockouts. So I just don't think this fight makes sense for the reasons I've already stated, and I also think Kevin Vallejos is far more technical and honestly has the power advantage over Pico as well, so I don't see Pico winning this fight. I think he'd get knocked out in the first or second round. At number 9, we have Steve Garcia, and honestly, I think this is a fun matchup. I do think Aaron Pico wins this. I think Steve Garcia is a solid, aggressive, pressure boxer, but everything that makes Steve Garcia good, I think Aaron Pico would have a pretty good job at countering and being able to slow down as well, because, Steve Garcia, like I said, is a lot of aggressive pressure boxing, and Aaron Pico is not opposed to ever throwing hands. I think as long as Pico works in the wrestling as well, because I think that's where he has the clear advantage, I think if he works in that, then this will be a good win for him, but there's always the chance that Steve Garcia knocks him, because Steve Garcia does have some real power at featherweight, so I would go Aaron Pico by a close, fun decision. At number 8, we have Arnold Allen, and man, I think Arnold Allen wins this fight. I think the Allen versus Costa fight that comes up soon is a very good fight to try and determine where featherweight's headed and kind of where we can match these guys up more. But I think Allen wins that fight. Arnold Allen just clearly has the experience advantage. He's been in there with Dan Hooker, Max Holloway, Gene Silva, Movsar Evloev, and Giga Chikadze. So from the experience and competition side of things, I'm clearly taking Arnold Allen. He's also fought all those high-level fighters and never been finished. Where Pico would have an advantage would be on the ground with his wrestling, but Arnold Allen has never really been easy to take down and just easy to control down there either, so I don't see that being just an easy option for Pico. I think he'd have to walk through a little bit of fire and exchange with Arnold Allen a little bit, and I think if he did that, he'd probably get caught. Moving on to number 7, we have Youssef Zalal, and Youssef Zalal has a fight with Aljamain Sterling soon. There's a lot of really nice featherweight matchups coming up. Zalal is a very good overall fighter, solid striking, decent power for featherweight, and he's a very good submission artist. But I don't see him being able to impose his submission game against Aaron Pico, and I think Aaron Pico would outstrike him on the feet as long as he didn't get crazy and reckless. I do have pretty good faith in Zalal's chin, so I do see this going to a decision, but I imagine Aaron Pico would be able to get it done. At number 6, we have Gene Silva, and man, this is another matchup that I'm like, don't do this. Don't do this right now. There's no need to do this right now. I think Gene Silva chins Aaron Pico. I think this is exactly the kind of fight that Aaron Pico needs 1 or 2 more fights before he gets to. I think this fight would be as fun for as long as it lasted, and obviously Gene Silva has been known to get a little reckless himself. Maybe Aaron Pico could catch him. Maybe Aaron Pico could get him on the ground. But I just think that Gene Silva would catch him with something crazy, catch him with something stupid, and put Aaron Pico out. At number 5, Aljamain Sterling. This is a pretty fun matchup to me, honestly. When I first looked at it, I was like, I have to lean Aljo. But honestly, Aljamain's wrestling at 145 has been a lot less fluid and a lot less swift, and I think Aaron Pico would probably have the strength advantage in the wrestling and would maybe be able to slow down what Aljamain tries to do on the ground. And from the striking perspective, I think Aaron Pico would have the power advantage. I think his combos are much smoother and much more precise, and I just think he'd win on the feet pretty clearly over Aljo. And I don't look at Aljamain Sterling as a featherweight that we have to really cross our fingers for and hope that he doesn't chin Aaron Pico. I don't see that happening for Aljo. So for me, the most likely outcome for this fight is a close decision win for Pico where he outstrikes Aljo on the feet and can contain his wrestling enough where it doesn't become too much of a factor. At number 4, we have Yair Rodriguez, and this is a tricky one. Yair's striking is very, very tough to deal with, and I think he could crack Pico pretty, not easily, but I could see him cracking Pico. The speed, the footwork, and the kicks would all be very difficult for Pico to deal with. Yair also has a pretty underrated submission game as well, so I don't think it'd be super easy for Pico to just push the wrestling on him and not have to worry about that. But with all that being said, I still take Pico in this fight. I have a weird feeling that Pico can get Yair on the ground, kind of work through the kicks, work through the speed, and really focus on the body and the hooks. And I see him honestly knocking out Yair Rodriguez in the second round. At number 3, we have Lerone Murphy, and obviously we already saw how this fight went. It did not go in Aaron Pico's favor, but to be fair, he looked good for as long as he did before he didn't get spinning elbowed in the head. He was looking okay out there, and that's kind of his problem, and that's where I think he needs to further develop, just taking his time, get the game plan down, get the fight IQ better, because I think he could have very easily won that Lerone Murphy fight. He just didn't take his time, and it cost him. Hey, man, but in the rematch, give me that Pico decision, man. At number 2, we have Diego Lopez, and man, I think this is a very tough fight for Aaron Pico. To me, right now, Diego Lopez has easily proved himself to be the second best featherweight in the world. If Volk wasn't there, I think we'd have a Diego Lopez champ run going on right now. Diego is not the most technical striker, but he has crazy power, crazy combos, really good aggression, and is honestly, I think, underrated on the ground as well. So with the limited run time we've got of Aaron Pico in the UFC, I just can't confidently take him over Diego Lopez, but I think this would be a similar fight to the Gene Silva fight in terms of, however long it lasted, it'd be an amazing fight. But I would have to go with Diego Lopez probably clipping Aaron Pico in the second round. And at the number 1 contender spot, we have Movsar Evloev, and this was actually a fight that we were supposed to get almost, like a year ago. It was supposed to be Aaron Pico's debut fight, but instead, obviously, he got Lerone Murphy, and we saw how that ended up. Dude, after watching the Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy fight in UFC London, I really think if Movsar fights like that Aaron Pico will probably get the win. Movsar was trying to strike with Lerone for like 2.5, 3 rounds, and it didn't look bad, but that's not the way that he should be trying to go after his wins. And if you tried to strike for 3 rounds with Aaron Pico, I believe Aaron Pico would eventually get the better of the exchanges. So to me, this really just comes down to what kind of Movsar Evloev we get. If we get the Movsar that fought Aljamain Sterling, give me Movsar Evloev. But if we get the Movsar that fought Lerone Murphy, give me Aaron Pico. And now for the champ, Alexander Volkanovski. I think with the Aaron Pico we have right now in this current moment that this would not be that much of a fight. I'm really not worried about Alexander Volkanovski on the ground at all. I think if he can deal with Islam at 155, then he can deal with Pico at 145. And his striking is far more crisp, far more precise, far more technical than Aaron Pico's. So I think Pico's only real chance would be to fluke a crazy combo, fluke a big overhand that could crack Volkanovski. But besides that, I don't really see a path of victory for Aaron Pico. I think if Aaron Pico was able to, do 2 or 3 more fights and then fight Volkanovski, then it could be interesting. But unfortunately, the timeline doesn't really match up for that, as Volkanovski most likely only has 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 more fights if we're lucky. So unfortunately, I just don't think this is a matchup that we'll be able to see. But if we did see it, give me Volkanovski in a decision win where he stuffs the takedowns and just puts a striking clinic on Aaron Pico, similar to what he did to Diego Lopez in their last fight. Alright, so those are my picks for how I think Aaron Pico would match up with the featherweight top 15. Let me know if I cooked a little bit, or let me know if I'm crazy. Let me know how y'all think that was. Either way, just let me know, and I will catch you on the next one.